All right. Well, Seth Dillon, it's great to have you on the Charisma News video podcast. I reached out to you because the other day I saw something that you tweeted. We'll talk about Twitter in a little bit, but you tweeted something that really stuck out to me because I know it's what got the Babylon Bee kind of banned from Twitter originally. But you said that on January 10th that Christianity Today says that the Babylon Bee has run a number of anti-trans jokes mocking both particular transgendered people like Levine as well as other fictional trans people. I kind of think that's a funny way to say that as well. But and then you responded, "Our jokes are not anti-trans; they're pro-truth. The idea that men can become women is false and funny." Uh, and then you also put that Christianity Today's in quotes, biology is bigotry. So,
Mhm.
Seth, thanks for being here. And I want to hear more about your thoughts about what Christianity Today was saying.
Well, yeah, I don't know what they're trying to communicate, what they're trying to say. All I know is the language that's being used there in that article. The language that's being used, framing the jokes that we've made about these issues as anti-LGBTQ. Um, you know, that's adopting the secular left's framing of how
Mhm.
these things are. It's always wrapped in terms of and presented in terms of bigotry and
Yeah.
hatred. The reason that you oppose this is because you're bigoted. You look at something like um, drag shows for kids, for example, these family-friendly drag shows, and I'm going to put that in scare
Family.
quotes,
Yeah.
family-friendly. That's how they define them. They call them family-friendly. And if you oppose that, if you oppose these people, these uh, uh, these scantily clad men dressed as women dancing and performing for children in the
Mhm.
audience, if you oppose that on any level, then it's considered big hatred and bigotry. And that's just their way of shutting you down. If they can make you look like a hater, like you've got hatred in your heart. That's their way of fighting back against your viewpoint, not by engaging you, not by
Yeah.
defending the drag shows for kids, not by refuting your position, but by making you seem it's an ad hominem personal attack meant to make you seem evil.
Mm.
So, those are when we think about how we engage on these topics as Christians, I think we need to avoid using the left's language, the secular left's language. And I think it's the reason I commented on this, the reason I tweeted about it in the first place, is because we see a lot of publications, Christianity Today among them, where there's a lot of willingness to capitulate on a lot of issues and adopt language that we shouldn't be adopting. We need to stand firmly in the truth.
Mm.
And so I think, with a joke like that, the joke that we made that got us locked out of our Twitter account, we were talking about how, USA Today had named Rachel Levine one of their picks for Woman of the Year, and which I think is a slap in the face to real women everywhere, by the way.
Absolutely.
So we jokingly responded with a satirical headline that said we named Rachel Levine Man of the Year, and so the point of that joke, by the way, if you kind of dig under the surface, what are we getting at? What point are we trying to make?
Mhm.
The point is that men are men and women are women, and and it doesn't make any sense to refer to a male person as Woman of the Year. That's silly, and that's an idea that we should be mocking, not taking seriously. It's not about hatred of an individual or putting down a person to make them feel bad about themselves. This is about truth. It's about
Mhm.
biological realities. And so, that's why I said that this was a joke that was advancing the truth. It's not anti-LGBTQ.
Yeah. And I think whenever you're dealing with people in that sphere, I'm not just going to talk about LGBTQ, but I'm just talking about the secular things, which is taking us the more woke, and they're taking us further away from the truth. It seems to be very an emotional response every time that they're confronted with the truth, which is probably why Twitter banned the Babylon Bee um, until Elon came in and saved the day. Uh,
Yeah.
so, like, how I want to ask your advice, your opinion, and your wisdom about standing strong whenever it's really easy to just capitulate to using the left's language, using that stuff just to kind of get by. Um, how did you get such a backbone that you're willing to stand like that?
Well, I think part of the issue is that when Christians are engaging on these topics, there is a strong tendency to want to be as loving and as accepting and as tolerant as possible of the person that you're engaging with.
Hmm.
Um, and so, there's a lot of that's where a lot of this comes from. A lot of Christians will approach these issues and say, look, we don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. Um, we certainly don't want to be mocking people and making them feel bad about themselves. That's not Christ-like behavior. And I see where they're coming from. The problem is when you cede this ground on, I don't think, for example, that as a Christian, we talk about, where'd you get your backbone from? It's not, for me, it's not really so much about courage as just a commitment to the truth. Like,
Hmm.
it's not loving to lie to somebody. It's not loving to affirm um, harmful untruths that, if we accept them, have damaging effects in society,
Yeah.
particularly on children. What we're seeing with all this gender affirming care
Hmm.
and this idea that boys, you can be a girl trapped inside a boy's body, and we need to get that girl out of that boy's body by mutilating the boy's body, and vice versa. These ideas, the willingness to be tolerant of and accepting of bad ideas that have harmful effects is not loving, in my
Hmm.
opinion. And so I don't think it's so much a matter of just, obviously there's a need to be bold and confronting these things, and you have to be willing to deal with whatever backlash you get for it. But I understand where some Christians are coming from. I just think it's misguided to think that in order to be loving, we have to give ground on the language that we use and not be confrontational on these issues. We should absolutely be every bit as determined to protect and safeguard our children and the truth as they are to corrupt and destroy.
Yeah. Yeah. That's very wise. One of the things that has always stuck out with me with the Babylon Bee, and you got a great team of writers and creators, and your video stuff is just amazing. It makes me laugh every single time. I look forward to getting a notification that, hey, there's another video out. Um, but we here at Charisma, we deal a lot with the prophetic stream, and I think that the Babylon Bee dabbles in prophecy more than anything else, because just give it a couple weeks or whatever, and what the Babylon Bee talks about seems to come true in real life. And I think just recently you guys put out a story about the whole M&Ms thing. There's like the female and the male bags different. Like, I don't even understand that whole thing, but I remember a year ago, I guess, kind of going back to the trans thing. You made an article about this an M&M identifying as a Skittle, and it's
Yeah.
like, wait a second, this is really like you chose something that was so in the candy aisle, and now it's mainstream news, and like the Babylon Bee is really prophetic. What is your thoughts about how? I mean, I don't think you guys are trying to be prophetic, but it just kind of happens. What are your
Yeah.
thoughts about that?
Yeah, we're not trying to be. I mean, there's no way for us to actually peer into the future. I think
Yeah.
in the creative process, what ends up happening with satire in particular is when you're attempting to exaggerate real news stories and things that you're seeing around yourself in the real world, you're kind of just going a step further. You're going a step beyond the truth and the direction the truth is already pointing. And and what we find happening is, because we're going through so many um, rapid changes in our culture in terms of like what's considered acceptable and good and true and right. You know, the most outrageous things in the world are now becoming very commonplace.
Mhm.
And so what was outrageous 6 weeks ago is now actually like being put forward in some bill somewhere,
Yeah.
or is happening in the news. And so um I think it's just that, when you try to take a step ahead of reality and the reality quickly catches up to you, all of a sudden your joke is true. And that's just the nature of living in absurd times. And it only gets worse. I mean, I think there's this kind of rapid acceleration of
Yeah.
going in really crazy direction. Reality catches up to you very quickly when the world is this crazy. So I think the pendulum will swing back in the direction of reason and sanity a little bit. We're going to have a course correction because there's been too much overreach. They've pushed it
Yeah.
too far. And so I think reasonable people will push back on that and the pendulum will swing back the other way. I hope so. It's a bad thing when our jokes keep coming true. I hope that they stay I hope that they stay jokes for longer
Yeah.
than they currently are.
Yeah, me too. Because honestly, some of these things are very scary. I mean, just listening to the news as I was driving into work this morning, they were talking about the possibility of banning gas stoves. I
Yeah.
mean, that just seems absurd to me. And hopefully, as more and more things are exposed, then people will push back. And I know you went to bat for a TikTok account with Libs of TikTok, which they're not creating content; they're just showing and displaying it. And
Mhm.
as people are seeing that, then it, everything's coming to light. And
Yeah.
so, why did you go to bat for Libs of TikTok?
So there's a couple of ways of approaching things. The Babylon Bee, what the Babylon Bee does so effectively is I think the Babylon Bee ridicules bad ideas
Hmm.
and and mocks foolishness for what it is, so that it isn't taken so seriously. It's also just about making people laugh,
Right.
clearly. But we do have there is kind of a deeper underlying mission of exposing irrationality and insanity and these harmful ideas, um, so that these, as Musk calls them, mind viruses, aren't
Hmm.
spreading all over the place like wildfire. So I think it's an important thing, and I think Libs of TikTok, comes at it from a different angle. The Babylon Bee uses satire. Libs of TikTok just shows you what's really going on, what these
Hmm.
people are really, what they really say and think and believe, just holding it up for everybody to see and saying, look, this is actually happening right now. This is really happening. Like, don't turn a blind eye to this. Pay attention. This is what's going on. This is what's happening in your kid's school.
Yeah.
And to do that and to be accused of all of the things that Libs of TikTok's been accused of, and all of the efforts that have been made to censor and suppress that content and silence that voice, when all it's doing is exposing these things for what they are. I think it's such an important thing that we keep our eye on that, and that we stay aware of what's really happening. And it was so messed up. They were trying to dox this girl and expose who she is and what she was doing, and that was dangerous for her because
Mhm.
what she is doing is such a threat to them. They find it so threatening whenever the mirror is held up to them, that it was really putting her in a very uncomfortable and dangerous situation. So I just wanted to make sure that she wasn't canceled, that she was able to continue doing this without fear of losing her job and having her reputation destroyed. There was going to be somebody who is backing her and supporting her. So that's why I got involved initially. It really all it comes down to ultimately is it wasn't a play for profit or something like that. It's about getting the truth out there
Yeah.
and standing behind people who are willing to speak it.
Yeah, and that's really important. We need to really stand behind other people that are speaking out the truth, and whether they're doing it in love or just doing it, we need to stand up for the truth. And I love how the Babylon Bee does this, and how you do it on Twitter. And I mean, you kind of have become your own. You have your own following too. It's not just because Seth Dillon is the CEO of the Babylon Bee. Like you are very humorous, and you have a great sense of humor that comes out in all the interviews and all the stuff that you post as well. What are some things that you find help you stay grounded in your faith?
Hmm. Um, well, I have really good people around me. I think that certainly helps. Having people that you can kind of lean on for their counsel, people that you trust, um, not just for accountability, but just for their wisdom and helping you stay on track and keep your focus on the right things. I think that's crucial because it's so easy, especially with the spotlight that's been on the bee and all of the attention that we've gotten. It's
Mhm.
very, I think it'd be very easy to get distracted by a lot of worldly things and take our eyes off the prize, so to speak. But I think having really good people around you that ground you, and keep your focus on what's important is crucial.
That is really good. That's really
I like
good.
what you said a moment ago, though, about the truth too. It's um, the truth, speaking the truth in love, whether you're speaking the truth in love or not. I do want to add another point. When it comes to some of these things about what we're telling kids, what kids are being presented with, and some of what Libs of TikTok is exposing.
Hmm.
You know, there when I mentioned a moment ago about the truth, it's not loving to lie to people. It's very important. The job of Christians, of parents, of educators, is to instruct children, not affirm them. It's to instruct them, not affirm them. And I think we get that wrong. For some reason, we've got this idea. It's a very popular idea now that affirmation is loving. But when your child's wrong about something, like objectively wrong about something, and you affirm them in their wrongness, you're only harming that child. The loving thing to do is to gently and lovingly correct them where they're wrong and put them on the right path, because the path that we're putting so many people on is a path to destruction. And so, to lovingly send them down a path of destruction, does that even make sense? That seems like a contradiction to me.
Yeah, totally. I'm just thinking about this scene in the movie Daddy Daycare. There's this kid that's running around pretending he's the Flash, and he never takes the costume off, and everybody kind of just treats him that way. They just say one day he's just gonna come out of that, and he finally does, and nobody recognizes him. But that's kind of what this world that we're in right now. We're in this cosplay, costume, makeup, pretend world, and we're just hoping that people get out of it on their own. And but as you said, you stay grounded by having great people around you. And so I want to encourage people that if you have somebody in your life that is struggling with their identity, to help them. Don't just pull away, but to reach out to them and help them so that they can have those good people around them, and hopefully get out of the costume, get out of the pretend pretty quickly. So Seth, thank you so much for your time here and just talking with us at Charisma. I know your tweets definitely catch a lot of attention, and we thank you so much for standing up for the truth and just speaking it loudly, whether it's satire or straight up just the truth.
Yeah. Well, it's great to be here. Thank you.
Thank you.